Welcome to the Faith First Podcast. So glad you're here with us today. A podcast about faith and life wherever you find yourself on that journey today. We are a part of First Lutheran Church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a community of faith where we discover more together. My name is Pastor Craig Brown. I'll be your host for today. I just want to say Happy Father's Day to you on this episode 58 on June 13th, 2024. Hope you're also enjoying this warm weather and getting out and having some fun this weekend. Got a great show for you on tap for today. Pastor Steve is coming by, and we're going to talk about what makes a good dad, what makes a father a good father through the scripture of Abraham and Sarah and their faithfulness to God and God making the impossible possible in their lives. Does that happen in your life today? We'll check it out, our discussion, and see how that might inspire you. Also, Pastor Katie is stopping by to talk about all the exciting things happening in church. I've got great news, and I've got even better news. Pastor Katie will tell us what that means coming up in our What's Brewing segment. We're so glad you're along with us here today. Let's go ahead and get things started and put our faith first. Okay, it's time for What's Brewing around First Lutheran Church. I have a special guest, Pastor Katie Lau Lancaster. Yay!
Oh, thank you very much for having me this morning.
Let's see if I have an applause button here.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. I got a little applause button.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah, we're having some fun. It's summer. Got a lot going on. What a week of church. Wow, we had a huge building vote. Mm-hmm. And you're on the building team, so we don't want to talk at great length. I think we've talked that to death, but 113-1 it passed. Yeah. Overwhelming majority. Someone said, oh, it's too bad you couldn't have, a unanimous vote. I'm like, the consultant said, if you get 65, 70%, you're heading in the right direction. We had 99%.
And it's always good to have somebody feel that they can speak their mind and have clarity, that they feel they can trust this community to voice their differences. I think that's really important. I think, though, the unanimous decision was, let's go forward and do something.
Right.
And how we're doing it together. I think if that... We all know we want to do something. The specific details, now we're getting a little bit into the weeds, but I think that it was just a vibrant time. I am on the building team, and I can tell you that is the most diverse group and incredibly talented group of people who are truly spending and investing their time to discern what's the best interest of this church, but also what has to happen. There's some of these tasks on the building team that we were facing that have to happen. Yeah. You have to maintain this amazing place that we've been called First Lutheran. We have to take care of this place. That's kind of a foregone conclusion, but there's some vibrant stuff in here and some truly just fun stuff.
I put on my Facebook page, I was just so happy with the church and so proud that they are moving forward to refresh God's house. Any church, anywhere. The people of God still see mission work in a church and through the church, and it warms my heart. What else we have going on? We're going on a staff retreat next week. Looking forward to that. We're going back to our old stomping grounds. You're in my Wartburg Theological Seminary for a couple of days next week. Why that concerns you is because your leaders are bettering themselves and trying to be more cohesive, and hopefully that'll help the whole church. And the office will be closed on next Monday. So if you come knocking, it'll be an empty building.
Call ahead.
We also have a huge shoe drive going on right now. I completely forgot about that. We sat down and you said, we got to talk about shoes. It's for a fundraiser for His Hands, and they are asking for your used shoes, boots, Crocs, sandals, flip-flops. Please don't donate anything with holes, rips, or single shoes. They can't accept wheelies, ice skates, or rollerblades. And if possible, please rubber band pairs together. Why are they doing this? Well, they are collecting gently and used shoes and sandals of all kinds and all sizes to, get this, Pastor Katie, to try to break the Guinness Book of World Records for most pairs of shoes collected in a week. Their goal is 250,000 pairs for the week.
There you go.
250,000 pairs of shoes in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I know you got half of them in my closet, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Don't miss this opportunity when you've been looking in your closet going, I just need to pass these along. Now's your chance. Pass them along. But obviously, pass along shoes that you would that should not go in recycling but could be reused. But
right.
This is awesome, and it's fun, and I've been seeing churches all over over and other nonprofits that are jumping in on this. And so we're making it easy. Just bring a pair of shoes. Hey, if you have to, bring them, wear them, and then take them off and leave them behind on your way out the door.
Go home bare feet.
Go home bare feet. There you go.
So this weekend is your last chance to do that. His Hands wants to collect them by Monday, so we're going to take them in boxes this weekend and take them in. Of course, we're closed in the office, just said that on Monday, so really Saturday, Sunday this weekend. Or I guess if you're hearing this today or tomorrow, you could still bring them into the church office. We'll be here 8 to 4. But wouldn't that be something to be the Guinness Book of World Records for shoes donated? So let's do it, church. Also, we just started a new series called Turning Points. And I think the early reaction, Pastor Katie, you haven't been in on this yet. I did the first one, Pastor Steve the second. But I think the early reaction is people are very positive. They're encouraged to learn these stories, but not only the Old Testament stories, but kind of the depth of these stories of why they matter and are important.
I think so too, and I think that as a community of faith, we can get challenged sometimes when people say you don't know your own history or you don't know your own stories. And so this is an opportunity, if you can't be actually in church but watch online or listen to these podcasts where the pastors are preparing for the message, and they're really giving you a little more in depth of stories that we generalize. What was it about? I mean, when Abraham and Sarah, and she laughs. I mean, we refer to them. How about knowing what it means?
Right,
or
giving context.
Yes, really. And then knowing that we sometimes glamorize some of our leaders, and often it's opportunity for us to look in the Old Testament that God provided us also stories of real humans that made mistakes. And in their making mistakes, the big turning point for some is when they realized to ask for God's forgiveness, or did they just walk away from God? The good news is God never walks away from us. So I think there's a whole history of stories that would just be lovely to connect with this summer.
So we've done Adam and Eve. We've done Abraham. We've got the burning bush coming up, and that's a fun story, the Red Sea, Ruth's incredible faith. 1 Samuel, who says, "Here I am." Jeremiah gives us a new covenant, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord." And we go all the way to Paul's conversion, which you're doing on Labor Day weekend. Don't skip church Labor Day weekend because Pastor Katie's preaching and you love Pastor Katie. But also, I think it's one of the most fascinating stories in all of history, let alone the Bible, that this guy was persecuting a religious group and dragging them out of their homes and killing them to becoming the greatest advocate for that same group. It's just talk about a turning point.
And God using people the way that God desires for God's good in God's kingdom. You know, in that story, it will make more sense, and it will, I think, really seal the deal when you understand the depth of history he brought along, the depth of how his conviction of his own faith and his own, and then turn. And he's willing to say, there's another way. There's a godly way. There's a Jesus way. And that'll happen at the very end of all of our summer. But obviously, Jesus shows up every Sunday. So that is part of the story as well.
And you also have Jacob, the holy wrestling match.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Between Jacob and God. I initially called it, I put in all the titles for you. You don't know this.
Oh, gosh, here we go. Surprise.
But I put in Holy WrestleMania, and I sent you an email. You probably haven't seen it. It says, Pastor Katie, this is a placeholder. You can change it. And then I thought, that's too kitschy. So I went in and I put Grappling with God. So that's your working title until you change it. What an immense story of, and we'll get to that here in a couple weeks, but immense story of a situation where a human being kind of helped change God's mind.
Having conversation with God and then realizing God is always aware and God is always listening. And it's us tuning into that as well. Can we change God's mind? Well, God is God. God can hear and reveal God's self in the ways that God desires. I think that the story allows us to really wrestle with the difference between negotiating with God and pleading a case with God. Because Jacob pleads. He doesn't negotiate. Hey, if you do this, then I'll do that, which is our tendency. To want to negotiate. Hey, God, I'll be better, and if I'm better, then all these blessings will come upon me.
Right.
And it's an exciting turning point.
Maybe it's more of a collaboration.
Oh my gosh,
God.
Yes, there you go. Let's collaborate.
That's our favorite thing. That's our staff retreat. We're talking about collaboration.
Collaboration.
And how we do that better. And then, of course, Vacation Bible School right around the corner. And here's this Pastor Steve says, I've got great news and I've got better news. The great news is we have how many kids now?
We are at 99 children that are signed up right now, and we still have 5 weeks to go. At this time in 2023, we had, I think, 17. And out of that, drum roll, we have 21 fourth graders.
How is that possible?
I have no idea, but there's 21 fourth graders. So it is one of those, we have asked for this, we prayed for this, and we are being blessed with an amazing response. I shared this morning, that's about 67 households that have chosen as their family to devote towards Vacation Bible School that week. Our preschoolers, we have about 12 to 15 preschoolers coming. They come just in the morning. So it's a great opportunity for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds to try out what it's like to be in a community. And then they go home, and then the rest of the group stays for day camp.
So as Pastor Steve says, I've got great news, I've got better news. The great news is, friends, we've got nearly 100 kids in Vacation Bible School. The better news is, this is your chance, podcast listener,
this
to
is
make
your
a difference.
Chance. And
we need all hands on deck to make this work. We're throwing a great party. Now we need to show up and host the party.
We have been blessed. Our goal was to grow from 2023 to 2024 by 10 children, and we have already doubled. We need your prayers. But we also need you to be fully present. We need especially some grandmas and grandpas. We need them to just walk with kids. You don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to do it, but you need to be committed that you'll walk with a handful of children. We have been blessed with a lot of really amazing leaders, and we also need some more, I'm going to be blunt, we need some men that come alongside, because when we do it together, we're showing households that both voices, all way people identify themselves is important here. So right now, we would just really ask that if you're getting a holy stir right now, that you take us up on it and actually sign up. This is the epitome of what God has called us to do, to go and make disciples. That's what Vacation Bible School is all about. That's what we're going to be doing. If one child sees Christ in a new way, then the party, it was all worth it.
We have a new men's study going now at the Big Grove. We had our first week. In fact, the nature of our study is that the book is men need to show up. That, thank God women have been showing up in leadership in the church, or we wouldn't have a church the last 50, 60 years. But it's time for men to start showing up and also helping take the lead. And we're not asking guys to be the lead teacher. You can be a grandpa and sit in the back of the room and be that supportive person for those kids. Just be a grandpa and help in that way. You can help in the kitchen. You can help with the parking. We need all kinds of help around the building that day.
We do. Back in the day, we often saw Vacation Bible School as those who did not have employment outside the home that during the summertime, or and they could hang out with the kids. But now we know that our team that we have right now, we have not only just school teachers that are off for the summer as far as classroom responsibilities, but we have engineers, we have physicians, we have people who've said, this is that important. I will give you this part of my time. I will take some time off to be there. My hope is that it's not gender specific, that we can show children that all voices matter in the sharing of the faith, and that we need to see all different mentorship. This is not macrame Vacation Bible School of my childhood. This is stand up, sing up, and just joyful all week long.
It's hanging out with Pastor Katie.
Just come and hang out with us.
You like when she comes up front and leads you in the children's message. Let her lead you for a whole fun week.
I will set you up for success. You will look like the best. But our theme this year is scuba, and we're going to dive into friendship with God. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. Just teach kids that you have a relationship as a friend. You see God as your bestest best friend, and they can too.
We still have some time. The dates of the...
Vacation Bible School is July 15th through the 19th. All that information's on our website.
Including how to volunteer.
How to be a part of it, but also if there's a testimony here, just know that if you're wondering, is this something that my child would like? We doubled in 1 year. The word must have gotten out that this is a vibrant and exciting week. So please join us. Please join us.
Well, you took them to outer space last year. And
now we're going underwater.
Now we're going underwater. And everything was blacked out and had black garbage bags and neon lights. And you walked in and you're like, I'm in outer space. Yeah. I mean, the whole building, not just a room. Every room in the upper floor. And now you're going to take them underwater. I can just imagine swimming like a fish and what's going to be the building. And then also, speaking of swimming, we just are lining up a pool party on that Monday night.
How exciting.
Free private party.
What will happen is everyone, Vacation Bible School, all our leaders, all of our team, especially our youth, we're inviting them to come to a pool party the first night. It's going to be amazing, and you're going to hang out with Campy Walloos staff as well. So talk about a perfect theme. Maddie has arranged something. We're going in the pool in a themed week where we're underwater the entire week. So it is one big splash of the entire week.
So that's the Monday night of Vacation Bible School. It's free. I think it's the Marion Pool.
Yes, it's in the Marion Pool.
And you're saying it's for youth. Is it for
It's for everybody.
Bible school kids too to come? And okay.
Yeah, so it'll be for everybody. We just, so families will come. They'll get an invitation to come. But I was trying to our youth that it can be really intimidating to walk in by yourself. We want them to feel they can bring a friend. So
if you're like a preteen, teen, and we have like 15
awesome.
of them helping out.
We have 15
Wow.
preteens helping us right now.
So you're saying for that group, if they want to invite a friend,
Bring a friend.
They feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna feel comfortable because at that moment we'll all just kind of walk in together and.
I feel like that movie on Caddyshack, the scene where they let the caddies in the pool for 15 minutes, 4 to 4:15, for 2 hours. The First Lutheran Church is going to just descend upon that.
There you go.
Pool.
It'll be fun.
Anything else we may have missed?
No, just if anything else, with all these activities that Pastor Craig has just shared with us, just bathe it all in prayer. Because as we know, prayer is what moves us. Prayer is where we feel that sense of God with us, and we pause, and we give God thanks. But we also just say, Lord, you know how our needs are going to be. Please provide them for us. Help us open more doors. Help us fling open the windows and get rid of these walls. Instead, just help us find ways to move through things together. So we ask you bathe through prayer the staff retreat, bathe through prayer the shoe drive for another ministry nonprofit, bathe through prayer our new sermon series, but also a vacation Bible school. All of these things, just let God move and invite God to move into this congregation.
And if God is moving your heart, men and women, please go to the website and sign up and join the party. Pastor Craig will be there. I'll be there. Pastor Steve will be there. And a whole bunch of surprises.
It'll be great.
And that's a look at what's brewing around First Lutheran Church.
Hello, friends. This is Pastor Steve Knutson doing this segment on Digging into the Word. And my guest today is Pastor Craig Brown. How are you doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah, we get to turn the tables a little bit. You asked me last week. Now I get to ask you this week.
Yeah, we're still talking about Abraham.
Yes.
Or Abram. Is he Abraham at this point?
He is now Abraham.
Okay, so we've skipped ahead.
Yeah, well, we went from Genesis 12, Genesis 15, he kind of gets a little tired and sort of like, God, are you going to do this or not?
Right.
There's a covenant renewal, and his name is turned from Abram to Abraham.
So I kind of have the high-powered sequel to your message on Abraham.
Yes.
This
the fulfillment of the promise.
Yeah, this is where the action starts coming.
Yeah. So tell me, you kind of laid the general thing. What's the story for this week?
Okay, so in a nutshell, they are both getting old, like maybe 80s, both being Abraham and Sarah. And I think they're pretty much given up on having a kid. I mean, wouldn't you in your 80s? And biologically, it's impossible, or if not near impossible, especially for a woman. And just at that time, a stranger comes, Abraham entertains him, and that stranger ends up being God in essence and blesses them with a biological child. And when they hear about this news, Sarah says that she laughs. This is kind of ridiculous. Yeah. I'm in my 80s. Mm-hmm. But they end up having a baby who is Isaac, and then Isaac has Jacob. And throughout almost all the Old Testament, you hear stories about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did this. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did that. Our lineage is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, we would never have that had this not come to pass.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so Abraham becomes the father of all nations. He fulfills that promise because they have this baby, and this baby gives us all these generations of faithful Jewish people, faithful Christians. Of course, their first baby, Ishmael, gives us all the faithful Muslims. So he's the father of three major world religions.
Abraham
and this is Father's Day. So there's an opportunity to go there. But I had a long conversation with Pastor Katie this morning off the podcast. I had a good conversation with Deborah, and I'm just not feeling the patriarchy of of the Bible and of this moment. And so I'm kind of playing around with Sarah.
Okay.
And which is odd on Father's Day.
Talk about Sarah on Father's Day.
Yeah, and kind of my first mind goes to, her gift. She is so faithful. She may even be more faithful than Abraham in a lot of ways. I mean, a spouse that stands by someone who is trying to be faithful and chase a dream or a profession. I mean, that spouse gets a lot of credit in my book in real life. If there's a woman that wants to become a doctor and that man or their partner stands with them, I give that partner a lot of credit.
Sure.
Because they have to make a lot of sacrifices.
Sure.
for that woman. They have to make they have to do a lot has to go on in their heart. And that's what's happening in Sarah. And my head just jumps to, well, it's Father's Day. She wants to give him the ultimate Father's Day gift of a son, of an heir. But again, that gets back to patriarchy. So I want to try to avoid that too, because it's all about the male having a male child so that the line can continue and the maleness of it all.
So when you think about Sarah, what things about Sarah? She stays with Abraham. There's a faithfulness there. What else about Sarah kind of captures your attention?
Well, just the fact of having a child. We don't have to experience that as men. My dad, he didn't even go into the delivery room.
Sure.
Back in the 50s and 60s. They just weren't even a part of it. They bear a lot of the weight here. And she's bearing a lot of the weight of the world on her shoulders and in her body. I mean, it's a lot riding on her and depending upon her, and she makes it happen.
So there's a little exchange, the messenger, Abraham treats them to a meal, provides hospitality, and almost in response or an announcement, the messenger says, I'll come back next year and you'll have a child. And Sarah laughed in the tent. When you hear that laughter, what's the character of that laughter? What do you hear first?
Yeah, I think I'm like most people. It's a dismissive laugh.
Sure.
I think you use the term a snarkle. Kind of a snarky laugh. Yeah, right. I'm going to have a baby. I'm in my 80s. Come on. But then maybe it turns, like you say, to a nervous Twitter. And
that like there's that exchange.
Oh, ha, ha, ha. This is really?
Yeah.
So now
what? I mean, the messenger says, now, why did you laugh? And she said, well, I didn't laugh. Oh, yes, you did. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's like, ooh, that kind of nervousness in the presence of someone seemingly powerful. It's interesting. What's the name Isaac? What does that name mean?
Well, it means he laughed. Or no, she laughed.
So that's more of a giddy or joyful laugh.
Right, yeah. I mean, Isaac is a quiet blessing. You don't hear a lot about him in the Bible. But
no, there isn't a lot in there. I mean, kind of a quiet guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, but, at 12 years, God says to Abram, well, take him out to Mount Moriah and sacrifice him.
Yeah, I can't even go there.
And
I hate that story. That's my least favorite story in the Bible.
Oh.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and then Abram has to send a slave back to Haran for a wife. Isaac just sort of receives her. And then they get to be an old age, or he's old. His two kids, Esau and Jacob, that are twins, are kind of in competition with one another. And he doesn't do a great job of sort of navigating that.
No.
Anyway, he's kind of a quiet, but not necessarily, kind of a flawed character as well.
As many people are in the Bible, but important to the line that gets us to David, which gets us to Christ. But going back to Sarah, she was so faithful that when they were getting on, and this was looking like she's past the age of being able to biologically have a child, she concocts the plan that Abram would have a baby by another means, by a surrogate, essentially. And they have that baby, and that's Ishmael, and it doesn't go great, according to some. But and we eventually get to Isaac. But it was her idea. I mean, she was trying to be faithful. She was trying to help him and them fulfill what God had kind of laid upon their shoulders and in their lives. And she's just a very faithful woman.
Sure.
And really carries the story at this point. I then wonder how many women laugh when they find out they're pregnant. It seems like everyone today is trying to get pregnant, and it's all this science and all the things you can do to do it. And I think of my parents, my mom's joke, there's 4, I'm the youngest of 4 kids. She says we're still waiting on our first planned pregnancy. So they were all surprises. But mom had my sisters at 19, 21, 26. And then I came along, she was 34.
Oh, okay.
And as the story goes, she goes out to meet Dad when he's coming home from work and just bawling. She's not laughing. She's crying. And Dad's like, what's the matter? What's the matter? And she says, I found out I'm pregnant, And she's like, well, it's okay. Well, what are we going to do? I'm 34. I'm too old, and we can't. What are we going to do to raise this baby? And Dad says, what do we do with the other 3? We just did the best we can. It's just a drastically different story than someone going 80 years and never having a child, and maybe at various points wanting one. Well, certainly near the end to fulfill the promise, wanting this, and just it can't happen. It can't happen. It can't happen. It can't happen. And then when finally some stranger says, "Yeah, you're going to get pregnant next year," I would laugh too. I would tell them you're just being ridiculous.
Or I'm not ready for this anymore. I'm sort of past the age. It's sort of like, okay, there was a time.
I've kind of given up mentally, emotionally, spiritually. No, you're exactly right. she had probably resigned herself, as maybe Abraham did too, that this is not happening.
Sure.
And for Abraham, I imagine that trying to be a faithful man of God, he feels like a failure. And I also want to be careful for, the people who are trying to get pregnant who can't. I mean, how are they going to hear this story? That, oh, she was just faithful enough and they had enough faith and they had a baby. And if you just have enough faith, then you'll have a baby.
Well, but there's no record of faith here in this particular story. I mean, in the sense that it is the announcement of the messenger because of an act of kindness at Abraham, whether it was because or just kind of within all those things happened in that day.
But if you want to make it contingent, if you want to make the argument, well, Abraham welcomed the stranger, be careful how you welcome the stranger, because you could be entertaining God and you could be leading to blessings. You could be leading to a birth. So I don't want to get down that slippery slope of if you just do things right, then God will make you pregnant, because there's people that can't get pregnant, and how are they going to hear this story?
Yeah, I don't.
There's all kinds of failings for me in preaching this.
Yeah, I don't think that the Bible ever thinks of things as contingent that way. It is this story. I was thinking about Matthew 25, showing hospitality to the least, the lost, and the last. Hospitality to those who are either in prison or without food or shelter or so forth. And I show hospitality not to show how good I am, but Jesus tells that story because I come into the very presence of God. And that in and itself is sort of the blessing that God comes to me. I guess I kind of think of this Genesis 18, not so much it has the specific outcome of a child, but they have come into the presence of God. And out of that, blessings come in a way that are appropriate for them in that moment. And that's, here in the story for Genesis 18. But those blessings can come in ways that are expected and also unexpected. Hard to project forward or, this is going to happen than that. But yet when we come into the presence of God, blessings do happen, sometimes in surprising ways.
It's a real gray, challenging area for me, Steve, around pregnancy. And I carry that baggage, I guess, into this. Every preacher carries baggage into a sermon, and that's my baggage. Walking with the people who can't get pregnant and coming to me and saying, what have I done wrong? Can I pray more? What's the spiritual answer? And we're partnering this lesson today with the gospel, which is have the faith of a mustard seed. Just have a tiny bit of faith and it becomes a great big tree.
Sure.
Just have enough faith and you'll have a baby. You can draw that conclusion. I'm not going to.
No.
But someone could. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking about turning points. I think for you picked out these scripture initially, right? We kind of laid it out.
Sure.
This was yours. And I think your thinking was the turning point was he was faithful to the stranger, welcoming the stranger, and that, in turn became a blessing.
Mm-hmm. God showed up.
That was a turning point.
Yeah.
He instead of turning the visitor away, he turned and welcomed the visitor, and that became a turning point in the whole story of God's ancestry. But I wonder if the turning point is them, like you said, they're aging and they're beyond. They probably shut off that idea.
Turned away from God on that one.
Yeah, not necessarily turned away from God, but just shut off the idea that it's going to happen that way.
I think, yep.
We may have a child, but it's not going to be a biological. We're in the 80s. It just makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so when God comes to you and tells you something that doesn't make sense to you, do you have enough faith to trust in God, to have that turning point, to turn back to God and say, God can do miraculous things. Mm-hmm. God can do whatever God wants to do and needs to do through me and through situations to get God's plan done. That's what I see. That's the strongest thing that's speaking to me, that's the turning point that Sarah had and Abraham, to be open to that, to the possibility that the impossible could be possible. And it just so happens to be a pregnancy and a birth, but it's not about a pregnancy and its birth. It's about the impossible becoming possible.
I kind of think about that sequence of laughter, from a snarkle or whatever. And then there's you laughed. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. So it now becomes a kind of a Nerdist Twitter, so like, uh-oh.
You're getting interrogated.
Yeah, I'm caught. And then the name of the child, Isaac, is about laughter. Mm-hmm. And that's a laughter of delight.
Yes.
And
finally, they accepted it. They delighted in it.
It came, and I wonder how often our experience of God's promises. I mean, you think about even forgiveness. Well, that's unforgivable. God wouldn't forgive me for that, or I'm beyond the pale. And then God keeps coming, and then you kind of wonder, well, I don't know, And then all of a sudden, you experience that delight of release, of forgiveness. You know, in some ways, that progression probably crops up in our spiritual life and our faith life and many other kinds of occasions. And just as you said, it's not necessarily about, in terms of the application, it is something bigger than just simply about an old person having a child.
Right.
Though that's part of the storyline. But the application is something other as well. We learned something from Abraham and Sarah that we can apply in a different way to our own lives.
Step one is you open the door.
Yeah.
Someone comes knocking, and you have the guts to open the door to God. And God comes knocking in a variety of ways. Maybe step one for some is showing up. We have 40 men in our men's study, and another 10 told me they're coming. We could have like 50 guys on Thursday night. What inspires me about them is their presence. They're showing up. That's step one. They're showing up. They don't know what God is going to do with this study in their lives, or what coming back to church or getting more involved in their faith might do. But that's step one. And just being open to saying, God, how might you use me? How might you do the impossible possible through me and with me and in collaboration with me? Right? All about collaborating.
But I think that notion of being open and how we live into that openness. For Abraham, it took a lot of work. He killed the fatted calf and all that kinds of stuff. But sometimes being open is just showing up.
Yeah, just having a mustard seed of action. Just allowing God to come in and surprise you, make you laugh, make you snarkle.
Well, I like that connection with the mustard seed. And what does it mean to have faith as a mustard seed, which is just a tiny, like a dust.
You can lose it in the folds of your hand.
Yeah, it's just a dust speck. You link it to an action of being open. An action of being available and allowing something to grow from that. I mean, that's a very kind of applicable. It's not like I have to have everything all lined up together at the beginning. Right. But the action that I take may seem insignificant, but the very act of being open allows me to be in conversation with God, God to be in conversation with me, and who knows where that will take.
And you don't even generate the seed.
No.
God puts that little mustard seed in your hand. You don't have to create the seed or you don't make your faith.
No.
God gives you everything you need in that tiny seed of a kernel of faith, and you just receive it and hold it in your hand. And you know that faith comes from God. So the release there to me is you could be a person who has doubts or fears or disbelief, and you don't even believe in God or believe that God is real or can do anything. God will give you the mustard seed that you need. Just show up. Just open your heart to the possibility that God could be real, that God could do some amazing things. I mean, look at our church. Yeah. It's just full of miraculous things happening. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Miraculous things happen every day. I was in the hospital. I was visiting someone, and they're like, I thought I was on one path, and lo and behold, God sent me on another, and I'm still here. And the spouse said, well, you know what, Pastor Craig, God still does miracles. I said, amen. And in this hospital building, a lot, through a lot of people every day. God still does the miraculous.
In those, when I go to the hospital, I always pray that God would complete what doctors can only begin. In other words, we have our medical interventions, but really the healing is something that God completes and makes happen. So,
and sometimes it's not a physical healing that needs to take place. I've had conversations. I've gone to hospitals and been there 2 hours, and it was nothing about the ailment. Yeah. But it was about a broken relationship that needed mended. And to be used in that moment, it just gives you goosebumps that who knows what God is going to do.
So there we have it. Sarah on Father's Day, digging into the Word and looking forward to how that all comes together. Pastor Craig, thank you so very much for this time together.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. It's time now to pray our way through the week. I am delighted to pray with and for you today for God's presence in your life. Would you join me in prayer? Be with us, O Lord, in the turning points in our journey as a church. As you have guided so many others as recorded in the pages of Scripture, guide our very lives to follow the path that you have laid before us. Teach your faithful people to be attentive to the needs of our neighbors, that we proclaim your grace through tangible acts of mercy and justice. As you have loved us through our father Abraham, so let us love one another. Empower fathers, stepfathers, grandfathers, adoptive fathers, and chosen fathers to embody this gift of love for their children. Where these relationships are strained or broken, bring your comfort and peace. You raise the lowly and humble those in high regard. Raise up all who are victims of marginalization, discrimination, and hate. As we anticipate Juneteenth, banish white supremacy and bigotry from hearts of all your people and remove the inclination towards anger and violence. Heal the sick, give companionship to the lonely, and comfort the grieved. With gratitude, we remember all the saints who are now at home with you. Plant seeds of their wisdom and witness in our hearts, that we grow in faith until we join them in your heavenly dwelling. O God, in whom we trust, be with our podcast listener this week. Where there are challenges, give them strength. Where there is sorrow, give them comfort. Where there is brokenness, give them healing. Where there is doubt, give them faith. Where there is darkness, give them your light and your hope of your Son, Jesus Christ. Receive our prayers, O God, and come quickly to our aid through the power of the Spirit and the love of Jesus. Amen. Well, that wraps up our time for today. I hope you get out this week and enjoy some of this summer sun. Father's Day just around the corner. I always look forward to seeing what my three boys don't give me. I said to one of them in the car the other day, I said, "Hey, it's Father's Day. You have a nice gift planned for me?" And he kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, "Yeah, sure, Dad. Sure I do." But just having the kids be with us is a gift enough, I tell them. So happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Hope you get some great neckties and other fun things. We appreciate you downloading our show and taking it with you wherever you go, walking, running, driving, wherever life takes you. We're glad to go along the way. We look forward to talking with you again next week. Until then, remember that God makes the impossible possible when we put our faith first.